Late model JK with a Gen 4 LS3, and this has a real LS3. The LS3 was really designed for manual transmission vehicles, where the L99, its automatic counterpart, had variable valve timing and flex fuel and active fuel management or four-cylinder mode. The LS3 was a lot less complicated. It was more of a performance engine, and that's why it became so popular in off-road racing and circle track racing and everywhere else. However, the L99, its variable valve timing counterpart, is really an excellent engine. It allows you to run a slightly bigger cam and still maintain a good idle. If you want the fewest amount of parts that can possibly break in a competition situation, then get the LS3. We're going to be talking about the cost of the 6.2 LS swap today. So let me give you a quick rundown on the LS 6.2s that we have used. Back in the mid-2000s, the L92 came out. It was mainly in the high-end Denali's and Yukons. The L92 was a great motor. It was an all-aluminum VVT engine. GM ran that motor in 2007 and 8, and then in 2009 they added flex fuel, which went to bigger injectors. They also changed the map sensor out to a Bosch style, which they maintain right up to this day, and they called the L9H. And the L9H was made from 2009 up to about 2014. But in 2010, GM released a version of the L9H that had the four-cylinder mode. And in 2010, GM actually added active fuel management or four-cylinder mode to most all of their engines, except for the 6-liter heavy-duty truck motor. But both the iron and the aluminum 5.3 had it, and the L94 had it, the L99 had it. Again, the LS3 did not have it. A little bit about this build. This build was done a while ago, and this guy has constantly upgraded it. Really nice JK, runs really good. Of course, it's not an LT, but it's an awesome running LS. I believe we got Evo double throwdown on this. We got not only an onboard air system, but we have the Made for Rock air system that has a Bluetooth device attached to it, and you can inflate and deflate all the tires very quickly. Of course, we got roll bars and 1-ton axles and 40s and lockers. This JK got upgraded to PSC hydraulics. Now, when this JK was built, we were using the GM accessory drive. Most of you know that we're using the JK accessory drive now with our easy billet brackets. However, it's been upgraded to PSC hydraulics. We're running a passenger side low air compressor, and there's limitations on that. This has got a compact compressor, but it's also got a relatively tall lift, so we're okay. But if you're running the passenger side low compressor and you don't have a 3 or 4 inch lift, there's a really good chance you're going to smack that compressor with the upper control arm on the passenger side, so keep that in mind. Of course, we don't have that issue with our billet bracket drive because we put the compressor on the driver's side. And I want to say something about that. The last few days I've had some conversations with guys wanting to run XD boxes, and here's my opinion. Yes, we have run the XD box. If you're running a Ram, don't run the XD box. The Ram's taking all the stress. There's not a whole lot of reason to run the redundant XD box, in my opinion, with a hydraulic ram on the tie rod. Now, we can run the XD box with the LT by eliminating the vacuum pump, and we can run the XD box on the LS by moving the compressor over to the passenger side, but we really don't like to do that. It complicates things, and if you're running a Ram, don't do it. If you're running 37-inch tires and you want that quick steering and you don't want a Ram, then that is a situation where we'd want to run the XD box. So back to the LS 6.2. In LS 6.2, L9H was the second swap I ever did. It was way back in 2009. That's over 10 years ago. That engine's still on my 09 Rubicon, and I love it. It's got well over 80,000 miles on it. I have no intention of pulling it out. I get reasonable economy with it. I get great power. I can cruise on the highway all the way across the country in comfort, fully loaded with my family in it. I can go to altitude comfortably. Like any other engine, it's going to lose power at altitude, and when going up the grades, it's going to downshift. But it's nothing like the V6. It's completely comfortable, and I have done 1,000 miles at a time in that vehicle, where with the V6 you'd be stressed to do that kind of mileage. Continuing on with a series of the cost of these GM V8 powertrains, we're going to talk about the cost of the 6.2 LS. So if you buy an LS 6.2 conversion from us today, the base price is $20,999, 21 grand. What you're going to get is a new crate GM engine. Just like the LT1, we're not going to fool around and try to find a used engine, because the used engine market on the all-aluminum 6.2s is not like the 5.3s or the 6.0s, where they're plentiful and not in demand. So you're going to pay a high price or pay a low price and not get a very good engine. We are fortunate that there's still a stock of new old stock crate 6.2 engines. Up till recently, we had both the Well, actually the L99, the LS3, and the L94 all available to us. I do believe the L99s are drying up. The L94 is still available, and my preferred engine. The L94 is my preferred engine for several reasons. One, emissions compliance. We are working on our executive order for the L94 engine to make it 50-state legal. That includes Colorado and California. Two, the L94 does have the truck intake, which some say has a little bit more bottom end torque for these JKs. But that aside, the L94 is available at a lower cost than the LS3. It has variable valve timing, which I'm a big fan of. And the L94 came out in 2010. It was put in most all of the GM truck SUVs like the Denali's, the Yukons, the Silverados, the Sierras. So it has a long history. A lot of them have been made. It's an engine that has been rationalized, and I have a lot of confidence in. It's an engine that's very mild. Your wife will drive. You can crawl it all day. Now, it is a higher compression 6.2, and it does require premium gas for most situations, but it's still as docile as can be, and it can crawl in the desert all day. I would recommend upgrading your cooling system with the all-aluminum 6.2 LS. Obviously, we have more displacement, and we have a higher compression engine than the 5.3 and the 6.0. So most likely you're going to get an L94 crate engine, new from GM. The $20,999 includes a low-mileage 6L80 transmission. These 6L80 transmissions have been around a while now, over a decade. GM is not really selling new ones anymore. What you're buying from GM is remanufactured units. And the price on the 6L80s has gone up recently because supply and demand. GM is now concentrating on the 8 speeds and the 10 speeds. It's a very reliable transmission. We work with reliable sources, so my advice is go ahead and get the low mileage 6L80. Most of the 6L80s we get are late model, 16, 17, 18. They come out of LT engines, but it's the same transmission they ran in the Gen 4. I've had 6L80s recently that were takeouts with less than 10 miles, and I've had them with as much as 20,000 miles, but that's approximately what you're going to get. The heavy-duty radiator and fan are not included in the $20,999 price. Again, being a high compression engine, my advice would be to buy as much cooling as you can afford. Getting the 52mm dual header radiator and the Camaro SS fan is going to ensure you that you can crawl all day and not have any issues. On top of that, we have our rail coolers for the engine oil and the transmission, which is a little bit over the top, but in a Jeep like the one I'm driving right now, heavy on 40s, you might consider it. It adds $300 per side for the rail coolers. That includes the hydraulic lines. We use hydraulic lines that are professionally crimped. We use a radiant finned aluminum cooler, which is very strong. Even if you bashed it, the odds of breaking it are very unlikely, but we tuck it up in there so it's up and out of the way. The Aeroforce gauge, of course, is an option. This guy chose to mount it up here. He's also got it in blue. It's available in blue, red, and green. I like green because it matches the JK dash better, in my opinion. So as we discussed in the previous video, you're going to get the Motec LS JK kit. You're going to get all the labor required to install the engine and the transmission. We're going to supply all the ancillary parts like the O2 sensors, transmission cooler lines, starter motor, exhaust manifolds, heat shields, etc. That's all included in the price. I would say my average customer with a 6.2, after he adds the heavy-duty cooling system and drive shafts, maybe an Aeroforce gauge, is in the low 20s, 23,000, maybe 24. But again, consider what you're getting. You're getting a new crate motor. You're getting an engine that has equal or better performance than most of the Hemis. No, we do not support the 8L90 with the LSs, but the 6L80, as most of you know, is a big leap up from the 4 speeds and the 5 speeds. So you're getting a relatively modern powertrain. It is not a directed injected LT, but what you're getting is well over 400 horsepower with reliability, drivability, and an engine that's been out for really over a decade and is well understood and supported in the aftermarket. I've got one of these in the shop right now. It's an L92 with a blower on it, pushing over 600 horsepower. We've cammed L94s and L99s, and the nice thing about them is you can limit the cam phasing so that the valves don't hit the pistons, and then have a smoother idle, but still have good top-end power equal or better than a LS3. If you take an LS3 and you cam it, let's say you get a 480 horse or 525 horse, or you put in a stage 1 or stage 2 cam, you basically got a 1955 small block Chevy. There is no VVT, there is no active fuel management, there's just no technology there other than a good old American V8 overhead valve engine. And that's pretty awesome for racing. There's less parts to break, tuning is easier, you don't have to worry about tuning the variable valve timing. It makes an excellent track motor, and I think the majority of you know that the LS3 has dominated many classes of racing. Now in a heavy JK on the street or crawling, I do think that the VVT does have an advantage. It allows you to have a little bit better bottom end while maintaining your top end. So go for the L94 unless you have a need for the LS3. And I failed to mention that the LS3 is still available, however it does cost more than the L94. I don't know if it's just demand or the way GM Performance handles it, but the engines we purchase are basically new old stock GM parts, not GM Performance. So they're OE production engines. When you purchase an LS3 through GM Performance, it comes through a different pipeline and the price is higher than it is with the L94, so take that into consideration. We have done several 6.2s with manual transmission, and I'm just going to mention that briefly. Yes, we can do a Tremec 6060. It has very good shifting. It's not sloppy like some of the truck transmissions. We have done the MVG 4500s. We've done the NSG 370s. The Tremec is top of the line. It's very strong, short shift, clicks in really nice, but it's going to add 5 or 6 grand to the price tag. The Tremec transmission itself is expensive. It has to be modified and converted over to a 4-wheel drive, then we have to run a custom adapter, so it gets a little costly. But if you have to have a top-of-the-line manual transmission with your 6.2 LS, we can do it. Plan on spending in the mid to upper 20s for that conversion. So when would you want the 6.2 versus the 6.0 or even the 5.3? The 5.3 LS we'll be doing a video on soon in the cost. And I will tell you that that swap starts at $14,999 or $15,000. That is more of an entry-level swap, a budget build for guys that just want to get into it. But it's also an excellent swap. I've done many budget builds, and years ago I did videos on some of these 5.3 budget builds. Those builds work great in light JKs with small tires at or around sea level. My wife drove a 5.3 LH6 for almost 10 years. It was an excellent engine. We only had 32-inch tires on that. We didn't have steel bumpers and skid plates and 1-tons, so it was more than enough. It would cruise around the country getting 20 miles to the gallon. Once you step up and you go to 40s like this Jeep, 1-ton axle, and guys, you really have to consider the drag of your Jeep. When you raise a Jeep up, you're increasing the aerodynamic drag. I had a Jeep recently with a roof rack on top of a roof rack and all sorts of other stuff hanging off like light bars, and when the wind would blow, I could literally feel that thing slow down. It was like a sail in the wind. So consider that. You raise your Jeep up, you got all this stuff hanging off, you need more torque. Now there's no getting away from the fact that a larger displacement engine is more efficient at hauling a heavy load than a smaller one. That's when you want to step up. So why would you want the 6.2 over the 6.0? And we're going to do a 6.0 video also. The 6.0 is a heavy-duty truck motor, and GM sets it up very conservative. It's got an iron block, it weighs a little bit more, not much. It's got lower compression, very reliable engine, does not have active fuel management, but it does have VVT. But the reality is, the 6.2 is more like the SS Camaro muscle car engine. It's got over 400 horsepower, all aluminum, high compression. You want to go out and show off to your friends, that's the motor you want to get. Or if you have a really heavy JK that you're going to take up to altitude, that extra displacement and compression is going to help. You want the 6.2. If you're an expedition guy and you just crawl around like a turtle, and you have a really heavy JK, the 6.0 is going to get the job done. But it's not going to have the top end performance of the 6.2. It's not going to pull your heavy JK in the mountains quite as well as the 6.2. So getting back on topic, this 6.2 LS, in my opinion, is still a viable swap. And you will notice that it is priced very similar to the 5.3 LT. The 5.3 LT, while not up to the horsepower of the 6.2, in my opinion, puts out similar torque, not in the same way. The 5.3 being direct injected and having the continuous variable valve timing means it puts that torque out on the bottom. The 6.2 still has an advantage, but the 5.3 is doing it through technology. It has smaller displacement, but it has higher compression and continuous variable valve timing along with direct injection. So it can mimic, in a lot of ways, the performance of the larger 6.2 LS. That's one of the reasons that they're priced similar. The difference is with the 6.2 LS, you're getting good old-fashioned overhead valve American V8 technology. I hate to use the term older technology because it's still relevant technology, but it's not state-of-the-art technology like the LTs are. And a lot of guys prefer to do that. A lot of guys prefer to stay with what's proven, what's been around for a while. So we're going to take this LS 6.2 for an off-road drive. We're going to be back with some other cost videos soon.